There is a photographer who works for a railway magazine, and for years he has travelled around British railways taking photos of the engines. The magazine wanted an article on the little Highland, so that was his next stop. When the engines heard that they were going to be featured, they were very excited and made sure not to let their railway down. At long last, Baron Starkey brought the long-awaited news of the photographer's arrival.
I've just received a telephone call from the editor. The photographer is coming on Sunday morning. He will take a photo of you all in this yard, and then I will tell him a little bit about the railway's history,
he informed. The engines were pleased. James Clifford was the only engine who worked on a Sunday, so it would be nice for the others to have something to do. The day finally arrived. All the engines' fires were lit and ready to be positioned. Baron Starkey and Fred entered the yard with the photographer. He had a very large camera.
So that's how they take photographs,
said Lyndon. The drivers lined the engines as best they could. However, the photographer was struggling to get them all together in the picture. He moved the camera to different positions, but it was no good. James Clifford was feeling a little impatient.
I've to pull the red Highland at 11 o'clock,
he grumbled.
Shh! There's still plenty of time,
scolded Peggy.
Please smile,
called the photographer. He was beginning to lose patience. Lyndon tried not to laugh. It was clear that the poor man was having problems. He asked some of the drivers to move the engines a little. They did so, but it was still no good.
Any luck?
asked Baron Starkey. In a temper, the photographer turned off the camera.
This is impossible. Don't you have more sidings so the engines can line up together?
He asked forcefully.
As you can see, we don't,
sighed Baron Starkey. James Clifford had finally had enough.
My train is ready,
he declared. Looking over at the station, Baron Starkey could see that passengers were already boarding the coaches.
Fair enough. I'm sorry, sir, but one of my engines has to leave,
he informed. The photographer was furious.
Such a waste of day this has been. I will have to come back some other time and snap the engine separately,
he said before packing up. Poor Baron Starkey was very embarrassed. James Clifford was relieved to leave the yards and enter the countryside. The other engines chuckled in the yards. They found the scenario ever so funny.
Silly fool needed a bigger camera,
joked Misty.
Did you see his face? It was turning redder by the second,
laughed Lyndon. Peggy, on the other hand, was more concerned about the article.
This is a special railway and should not be made a fool of. If the photographer is going to photograph us individually, then it must be the perfect chance to show all the readers far and wide just how beautiful our railway is, she announced.
What do you have in mind?
asked Gunther. Fortunately, Baron Starkey came to the yard the next day.
Excuse me, sir,
called Peggy. Approaching at once, Baron Starkey gave his full attention.
I know it's a busy morning, but please listen to my suggestion. Us engines all have our own jobs and venture to different destinations every day. What if the photographer took a picture of each engine at a different part of the railway? It would help show the readers what exists beyond our yards, she suggested. Taken aback by her proposal, Baron Starkey smiled with pride.
You have always been a wise engine, Peggy, and I like your idea. But it would mean that the photographer would have to journey with you during your jobs, he presumed. Tell you what, I will telephone the magazine and ask.
Peggy was pleased and hoped they would comply. That evening when she returned from the harbour, she had good news.
Each day this week, the photographer is going to journey with an engine. Upon reaching your destinations, you will tell them who you are and what jobs you do,
he informed. Sure enough, the next morning, the photographer took a ride on the red Highland. Upon reaching Briscoe Central, he snapped a photo of James Clifford and listened while he shared the journeys he undertook each day. The following morning, he observed as Misty shunted the wagons and coaches. He thought it best to take a photo at Carlory Station. A few hours later, he boarded London's boat train. He enjoyed the peaceful journey down the causeway before finally reaching Cold Harbour. Once they reached the quay, he set up his camera and took the photograph. On the final day, he boarded the brake van as Peggy made her way to the watermill. He thought it would be the perfect place for the photo, so asked the miller to join Peggy in the picture. After delivering the flour to the harbour, they made it back in time for Gunther to collect the miners. Once the final photo was snapped, his job was now done, and relaxed during the journey back to the shed. Before catching his bus, he spoke to all the engines. Next month's issue of the magazine will be remembered for years. Oh, such fun I had over the past few days. I have seen with my own eyes that the little Highland really is a beautiful railway, he expressed. The engines couldn't have been more proud.